protest. We have Caul who has been a campaigner for the last 2 decades and is basically a truth and justice campaigner with an organisation called Campaign for Truth and Justice. I'll just talk to Caul. Hi Caul, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks.
I've been basically just talking about your organisation, Campaign for Truth and Justice. Would you like to talk about your what inspired your campaign and why you're protesting outside the courts?
Well, what inspired our campaign stemmed from a very tragic event, the death of one of my children who died from dehydration, who was left to die from dehydration in the state hospital, 5 hours in casualty without fluids, and the overwhelming attempt to cover up those circumstances of my son's death, which has led to judges acting whilst their brothers have been presiding, and me ending up in prison having committed no offence and just been met with an overwhelming level of corruption and criminality by members of the so-called justice system.
Okay, so you say you were falsely in prison. How long was that for?
Well, initially I was picked up from the streets, I say kidnapped from the streets, and brought to prison for 10 weeks before the prison authorities realised I should not have been there, and they made arrangements for me to be produced in this court where we're at now, and a judge released me from that period of unlawful and false imprisonment. Thereafter, I sought to seek redress for that criminal act that was committed, and the matter was referred from Downing Street to the Lord Chancellor's Department. They then had the audacity to write back to me confirming that a judge had presided over a matter which was prosecuted by his brother, confirming that it was conducted behind my back, or ex parte, the term they use, and confirming that I had no legal representation, but denying there being any possibility for bias, so that there was nothing that could be done about that breach of my rights and breach of the rule of law.
Okay, so now you have a protest going on which is called Empowerment Monday protest. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, yeah, that was started on the 16th of September. So
2003.
2013.
2013, sorry.
Yeah. So far it's going really, really well. We've had 3 really successful Mondays out here. The first Monday, they closed this street off outside the court and gave it to us. Initially, before we started, we tried to speak with Scotland Yard to make arrangements about the protest. However, they ignored us and redirected us elsewhere. However, after that first day, as I said, they contacted us immediately by email asking us to come in to sit down and have a chat about facilitating it. And the second week, I think they were now prepared. In fact, they told us that our first demo had an impact on 50 bus routes throughout central London, so that was really, really effective. Now the second week, in order to avoid us being as effective as the previous week, they said if our action on the zebra crossing become as disruptive as the previous week, then they would issue a public order act, and
Cool.
all right, take it easy. And that would limit our use of the zebra crossing. However, so later on that day, we nonetheless carried on as previously arranged, and we ended up with 4 arrests. But the arrest is in our favour. We welcome the arrest because it opens up the doors to the arena where we can then go and lay our complaint. Can you edit here? I want to say hi to Kurt Barling. Mr. Barling, could we just say hi? Have you got a card that we can speak to at any time? I haven't got one on there before. Well, I'm part of this group at Caul Campaign for Truth and Justice. We have a massive issue that will have a huge impact on the system at the moment, and stems from the death of a child that was left to die from dehydration in hospital, and a senior High Court judge who's now in the Supreme Court presided over a matter being prosecuted by his brother, and from those proceedings, despite not having any legal representation and not being present, he ordered that I should be picked up and brought to prison without charge, without trial, without... So, and I have all that is documented. So
Yeah, what did he say? His address was
Kurt.Barlin@bbc.co.uk.
Now, who is he?
He's a reporter. He's a news reporter from BBC.
Okay,
yeah.
so just so that people can check him out, what do you think he's on the side of the people?
Well, I mean, I cannot make a judgment. I have no idea. The thing is, what we have is a situation that, as a result of the possible impact that it could have on the system, I think maybe even if he's a journalist of the people, for the people, etc., that he will be told, if he wants to publish, he'll be told whether or not he can. That's the situation we're confronted with.
Yeah, there's a major media blackout when it comes to corruption cases, isn't there?
Yeah, indeed, and especially when a case can have devastating impact on the system itself.
Yes. Now, do you know of any other cases whereby, I mean, I know people have come up to you outside your protests, I remember last year, but do you know of any other cases involving the NHS and people being refused and denied access to justice?
There are absolutely, literally numerous cases that I've been aware of. Some of these people have decided to come and join the campaign, but there are endless cases of people who have had terrible experiences within the NHS, and yes, I hopefully they're all coming together now so that we can act as one voice in trying to break the silence that surrounds all the corruption that we're met by when we try to complain about the system.
Okay, so would you say that there's a conspiracy of silence in the UK generally about the violations in the judiciary?
Without a doubt. I mean, now it's easy to write off people who say conspiracy. However, there is a fact, it's undisputed that this state or the government in this country, they have what they call a D-notice, or the prospects of a tool called the D-notice. Now, if they issue that, it's normally used in the interest of national security. If they issue it, then all publishers, print or spoken, agree not to publish a story that they come across that such a D-notice have been issued, or such a notice have been issued. Now, as we know, any power is open to abuse. Now, whilst a D-notice is only supposed to be used for issues involving national security, there is no doubt in my mind that such a notice has been used in these cases.
Okay. Now, have you got a website or something?
Our website is www.ctj.org.uk. That's www.ctj.org.uk.
Yeah, thank you. And there are obviously people can Google your recent arrests on the 23rd of September 2013 and find out information. Now, you're doing Empowerment Mondays. Is that continuing every Monday, or what's the plan?
I'm pleased to say that we are continuing every Monday. We've had 3 Mondays outside the outside the High Court here in the Strand. Next Monday, the 7th of October, we're going to be outside the BBC. We may do a second week out there as well. And then we've got several other locations. The Ministry of Justice is one I can think of. Byneman Partners on Gray's Inn Road. There's a zebra crossing located quite near to their offices. And indeed, ITN news station is there. We also have Channel 4 in mind. I mean, we have numerous locations in mind for our Empowerment Mondays. And we intend to carry on Empowerment Mondays, irrespective of the weather out here. indefinitely until they begin to listen.
Now tell me, you mentioned Byneman Partners, and their names have been named in several high-level corruption cases as key players. Now, can you tell us what this organisation has done to you?
Byneman Partners were responsible or retained initially by my wife and myself to look into a potential negligent claim regarding my son's care at King's College NHS Trust.
Care and death as well?
Sorry?
Was it in relation to his death?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
Yes. So they were also retained to look into the fact that the hospital had given me false information about my son's welfare and where he was that night, or whether he was at their hospital or not. Now, they literally stood in the way of any form of justice or me getting any answers regarding the circumstances leading up to my son's death.
So are you saying that they were obstructing your
pursuit
of justice?
Absolutely. So eventually it led to me issuing an action myself against them and the hospital in a joint action, and it was there that their corruption really started, because Byneman's was represented by another firm, and the senior partner at that...
What's the firm called?
Reynolds Porter Chamberlain.
Yes, and their name has come up as well.
Yeah.
Certainly in cases that I know about in my case. But go on, anyway.
The senior partner at that firm was a Mr. A.K. Toulson, Alan Toulson, and his brother presided in these courts here, the Royal Courts of Justice, Mr. Justice Toulson. Now, they got together and made, first and foremost, they got together and sought an injunction against me, contacting Byneman's directly. This was an injunction I knew nothing about. They later got back together and claimed that I had breached this injunction. Again, as I said, this was something I knew nothing about. And then that judge, Mr. Justice Toulson, issued a warrant to his brother for me to be picked up off the streets and brought to prison without charge or trial. And as I said earlier, I ended up in Pentonville prison for 10 weeks before the prison authorities realized I should not have been there, and they brought me to court, presented me before Mr. Justice Buckley, and he released me saying, "Mr. Grant, the background of your case is extremely tragic. Go home to your family."
Now tell me, you said that Byman's used a number of tactics to obstruct your pursuit of justice. Can you just give us an indication or an example of what sort of tactics they used against you?
Well,
was that one of them?
Well, first and foremost, once I wanted to pursue this action of false information, they already had my legal aid certificate, as I said, and when when they were telling me there's nothing I could do, I contacted the Law Society, I contacted several other firms, and they were all telling me that yes, you can do something about it, yes, you can sue for false advice, etc.
And because it comes under negligent misstatement in tort.
Indeed.
And misrepresentation.
Indeed. The same law that covers negligent acts since 1964 has covered negligent information.
Yes.
So Byneman was willfully giving me false advice, or had willfully given me false advice, and now were willfully refusing to release my legal aid certificate so that I could go and get legal representation elsewhere. This was even after a direct involvement from my then MP, Tessa Caul, who wrote to the Legal Aid Board on my behalf asking that my certificate be transferred to another firm. It wasn't until after I had suffered a nervous breakdown, ended up losing my gainful employment, that the certificate was eventually transferred.
Wow, so you have been put basically through the mill for the last, how long has it been now?
Well, it's 19 years now, and that's apart from the death of my child. There then followed the breakup of my marriage and the suffering that's involved with all of that. My daughter at the time was 5 years old. My wife was pregnant with our third child, and I mean, from the age of 5, I've never lived under the same roof as my daughter. as a result of Byneman's obstruction to justice.
So what would you like to say to them? If you could say anything to them now, what would be your message to them?
I would say to Byneman's, I promised you then that I'm going to pull down your firm brick by brick, and that promise still stands today. And look out, because Campaign for Truth and Justice is coming to get you.
Right, so I mean there's a number of people, obviously like myself included, who as well have had been targeted by these organisations like Byneman's and such forth. Now, what do you see as the solution? Because this is the problem. What we're talking about is the problem. And what do you envisage as the solution to the vast amount of corruption taking place in the UK?
Well, we need to dismantle the system that's in place that is heaping the level of injustice on the citizens of this country, as is taking place at the moment. We need to dismantle it and bury it forever, and then rebuild a new system, a complete and transparent system of justice.
Which is run by rule of law.
Run absolutely by the rule of law,
Yes.
indeed.
Well, thank you, Caul. For anybody that wants to come out, I'm trying to... Sorry, I just wanted to... It was quite noisy. But for anybody that wants to find you at the protests, they're Empowerment Mondays protests, is that right? Can you tell us?
That's absolutely right. And as I said, next week, the 7th of October, we're going to be outside the BBC. We may be out there the following week as well, because these people, they're used to dealing with one-off events. But that's why we have decided to have an indefinite event of Empowerment Mondays, and we will not let up. We're going to be outside the BBC, as I said, for a couple of weeks. We may then head for the Ministry of Justice. We could come back here. We've also got, as I said, Byneman's offices. We're definitely going to give them a good few weeks of publicity, and I'm sure they're going to enjoy it.
Bad publicity.
They say no publicity is bad publicity.
Well, they definitely need to be brought to the spotlight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, Caul, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And I'll look forward to seeing you at the protests.
Pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.